Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Southern Fried Podcast, a production of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. I'm Rex Nelson, Democrat-Gazette senior editor, and my regular Arkansas analyst on this show, Skip Rutherford, Dean Emeritus of the Clinton School of Public Service, the founder of the Political Animals, Mr. Arkansas in many ways. It's been a while, though, Skip. We've got a lot of ground to cover today.
We do, Rex, and thank you for having me. We do have a lot of ground to cover, and it's always great to be back.
We will start, of course, since we have last been together, with the loss of an Arkansas icon, your friend, mine, David Pryor. You worked for David Pryor. You ran his Little Rock office when he was a U.S. Senator. But just one of those figures that kind of transcended politics. Even though he was a politician, he transcended politics. Great storyteller, great Arkansas historian, and I always thought that, and I wrote this in a column, that David Pryor really represented the best of Arkansas, of who we are and what we can be.
Rex, I agree with you, and obviously we've both known him a long time. He was a mentor, a teacher. He taught me so much about politics and public service. I've said over and over again, he was the best of Arkansas, and he brought out the best in Arkansas. Politics was important to him, but fairness, decency, and civility were his trademarks.
Absolutely. Decency, civility in a time when we don't have that much in politics. And, I felt that when I went to Washington, D.C. in the mid-1980s, Skip, that it was kind of the end of an era. That was a time when Republicans and Democrats would go to dinner together. As you well know, one of David Pryor's favorite colleagues, best friends in the Senate, was Alan Simpson, well-known Republican senator. You would see them at the monocle sitting together, and when I was up there is when we really seem to start seeing things falling apart. It has accelerated, of course, in recent years, but David Pryor represented that old era when people sat down together, when they actually, and now they don't, when they actually moved their families to Washington and lived in Washington, and that allowed them to know their colleagues better because they were going to youth baseball games with them and going to church with them on Sunday.
Yeah, you're right. The whole thing has changed, both at the local and national level, state level too. But when retail politics was important, when it was important to go to the White River Water Carnival and Ding Dong Daddy Days and the Pink Tomato Festival and all that, David Pryor was at his best. Those days have changed. But Rex, as I was watching this whole week, and obviously being very much trying to help the Pryor family as much as I could, I noticed at the service last week, as I looked around and I saw John and Kathy Bozeman, and I thought, maybe of different political persuasions, but decent, civil,
absolutely
fair. And I thought maybe it's not all gone, because I thought, there's a lot in common between David Pryor and Mark Pryor and John Bozeman. Maybe not political votes,
right,
but not mean votes, not mean people.
Absolutely.
And I must say, I was restored a little bit. It just reminded me what a decent family the Bozemans are, and the fact that they were sitting there right by the Clintons on that front row at that service. I thought, this is good. This is really good.
David Pryor, of course, a product of Camden, down the river from where I was raised. Again, I wrote in a column that my favorite days when I worked in Washington for the Arkansas Democrat were days when Senator Pryor's secretary would say, just go in there. He's kind of bored this afternoon, and get him to telling old South Arkansas stories. And thank goodness we had him as a governor, we had him as a congressman, we had him as a U.S. senator, Skip. But I always sensed with his love of Arkansas, its people, that David Pryor probably could have been just as happy being the Ouachita County judge as he was being a U.S. senator.
Well, I don't know whether he wanted to be happy. I think you make a good point. I think the potholes would drive him crazy, but have it work for him. I think going out trying to haul dead dogs off the road and get the potholes and have the people complain. But I do think that what David Pryor, your point about Arkansas history, Arkansas people, Arkansas politics, and Rex, a lot of times when famous people in our state live and then die, and there's an outpouring of support, and there's a memorial service and all that, and then they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
David Pryor is not going to be gone because the things that he loved, the stories, the history, the politics, all through the Pryor Center at Fayetteville, preserving oral and visual history, the David and Barbara Pryor Center. Rex, those stories are going to go on and on and on. And this past week, at all the events for Senator Pryor, the Pryor Center was there getting people to record their stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought as that was happening, I thought, David Pryor would love this.
Yeah.
This is a great tribute. And so I think for generations to come, and for people like you and me that are really like that and will use it and will access it, it's a lasting gift.
Yeah, absolutely it is. What a gift to Arkansas that is, like you said, they go around introducing Arkansas, saving their stories, meanwhile still in the years-long process of digitizing and cataloging the 24,000 hours of tape that they have from KETV Channel 7 in Little Rock, which even the folks at ABC said was the greatest collection of old news tape of any affiliate in America, thanks to the late Jim Pitcock, who we just lost very recently,
you bet.
too.
Wouldn't have happened without Jim Pitcock. Wouldn't have happened without Randy Dixon. There are a lot of people that were involved. Wouldn't happen without the Tyson family.
What a slice of Arkansas history that is.
Yeah, and what they've been able to collect since then. I mean, it's just really amazing. And I just think for people like you and me that are junkies, like the Encyclopedia of Arkansas, the great idea of Tom Dillard, the Butler Center, the Pryor Center, Arkansas history, I believe, is in good shape.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing before we move on from Senator Pryor. Some people might consider it was a strange choice. I decided the column that ran on the day of his memorial service would be about his lone defeat. But I think that the graciousness that he showed that night in his concession statement after he lost to Senator McClellan, I think maybe that night and that statement personified David Pryor saying, this is my senator. I'm going to show him respect more than anything else I could find, Skip, and that's why I decided to go that direction.
Well, I thought it was very appropriate that you did, and obviously I'd already complimented you on it because I thought it was a great column. David Pryor taught us how to win. He also taught us how to lose.
Absolutely.
And in politics, you got to be able to do both.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Pryor's concession speech after losing to Senator Cotton reminded me of David Pryor's speech.
Yep, in 72.
Right.
Yep.
He taught us how to win, and he taught us how to lose.
Absolutely. David Pryor, long remembered. What a great Arkansan. You look at the era, Skip, when you and I came of age, and you realized, we've talked about this before, I always go back, you have to go back to Rockefeller because it was a Republican that forced the Democratic Party to change, to move on from the segregation era, to move on from the fall bus era by his victories in 66 and 68. But Rockefeller forced the change, and then the Democrats moved into the modern era with Dell Bumpers and David Pryor and then Bill Clinton. But those four figures totally transformed Arkansas politics, and we were lucky enough to be of an age to watch that happen through the years.
Yeah, we were, and I think as you look back, the older we get, the more respectful and reflective we will be about those times.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, I go back to say I hadn't lost all hope because I really do believe in.
Yeah.
Again, it was an inspirational moment to see the Bozeman's there, and I thought, that's a kind man.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fair man. He and I wouldn't vote alike, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's a fair man. That's a decent guy. And I had that not all is lost, Rex.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I'm not ready to say all is lost.
All right. Well, this will be the good, bad, and the ugly episode of Southern Fried because I'm going to move on to the Arkansas legislature and the administration. Luckily, this is just a budget session that we've just seen, so there's not a whole lot of damage that the legislature can do after last year, what I thought was the worst legislative session of my lifetime. Pretty much just cleaning up some mistakes from that session and passing a budget this year. But, Skip, we've got to comment on the fact, again, since I've last had you in here, we had the release of legislative audits report on the lectern. Everybody's familiar who's listening to this, I know, with Lectern Gate, so I won't go into the past on that. But the thing that struck me most, and this is in great contrast to the maturity and the decency of a David Pryor, was the reaction of our governor's office and the really childish, silly video that was put up, the come and take it video about the podium. I've got to be honest with you. I watched that little video, and I thought it was a spoof at first. I could not believe something like that would come from a governor of Arkansas.
Yeah, it was surprising to me too. I really didn't know what it was. I didn't even know why it was being said. You know, again, I don't know the inner workings of the governor's office. And in fairness, let me say, I saw Sarah and Brian Sanders come to the state capitol when David Pryor was lying in state and graciously, and I say that graciously, welcome the Pryors, meet with the Pryors, talk to all the Pryor family, probably spent well over an hour there. It was a Sarah Huckabee Sanders side that I was really glad to see. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know whether it's the traveling trumpettes or whatever it is, but I knew her when she was young. I knew her in high school, when she was in high school with our kids. And this was a side of Sarah Sanders that I really appreciated.
Yeah.
She was very, very gracious and very open and spent time with people, and I thought that was very great.
But you're known by your actions in office, Skip.
That's why.
So what are we dealing with, Jekyll and Hyde here?
No.
Because that was Dr. Hyde
no,
in the video.
What I'm saying is, the video was awful. But what I'm saying is that if you look for the good in the people, maybe there's something there, and I saw a little bit of it on the Pryor thing. But look, the Lectern Gate issue, the response to it, saying we disagree with the audit, but the audit cleared us. The audit was flawed, but we're cleared. Well, they weren't cleared.
Not at all.
And then you look at this emerging story about, was she involved in with the National Enquirer about allegedly payments for covering up stories. I don't know about that, but it's now emerging. And you look at her state budget of 63.1, billion, and you think it's a 1.6 increase, and most of it going to private school tuition vouchers.
And most of our four-year colleges and universities actually getting a cut, Skip, in their budget.
Yeah,
at a time when higher education is more important than it's ever been in Arkansas.
You know,
if
Rex,
you look at our economic and workforce needs.
And the thing that I disagree with the Sanders administration's outlook on the economy is that they don't give enough credit. I know things are good, but and getting better, and we'll talk about higher ed and all that stuff. But Arkansas has had a major infusion of federal dollars. $8 billion in COVID relief. We've had 479. I believe that number is 479 million in PPP loans that were forgiven to Arkansas businesses. We've had I believe I'm right, about $2.3 billion in the bipartisan infrastructure law. I believe I'm right. We're going to get a big share of the $60 billion in defense spending of the new defense bill that will be going to Camden. A bunch of that will be going to Camden.
And Fort Smith. Actually, with the military mission there.
I think that $49 million $497 billion, I think it's $497 billion. But it's a lot of money. I'm saying a lot of federal money has come to Arkansas that has helped the Arkansas economy. And when she criticizes the Biden administration left and right and all that, she doesn't acknowledge that part of Arkansas's boost in the economy is that we've had 2 years, national years of unemployment under 4%. That's full employment. People are working and spending and contributing to their communities, and I don't think she gives that enough credit.
No disagreement here. Our economy is, and we talked about this on the last show. The last time I had you, we kind of went around the state with the things that are going on, and the economy is doing very well right now. But again, you go back to that old term of seed corn again, and you look. I've got a column coming up, Skip. You look what Texas is doing, and they've got a legislature that's probably even more conservative than Arkansas's. But you look at the funds they're putting into higher education and research and development, and I'm outlining some of that, and they're eating our lunch right now, Skip, and we have got to, as a state, say, look, we've got some things, whether it's the coming lithium boom in southwest Arkansas, whether it's the defense boom in Fort Smith and the Camden area, whether it's the steel boom in Northeast, but we've got to give it some impetus. We've got to take it to the next level, and I think you have to do that by higher education. And people say, well, not everybody needs to go to college. Well, higher education, I'm including 2-year schools and 4-year schools, and a lot of your job force training, workforce training is coming through the 2-year schools. So understand that. I'm talking about both, but in my mind, if we're going to take what are the seeds of the potential of a golden era economically in Arkansas, we push that forward through improving both our 2-year and our 4-year colleges and universities.
And that's exactly right. And Rex,
not cutting them.
Here's the thing. College is not for everybody, but it's a lot more than we're going to college. Yes.
Yeah.
And so when you say, well, college is not for everybody, then what we're saying is, well, okay, so if we have 33% of our graduates, college graduates, whatever that number is, then we're losing out on job opportunities. We're losing out on attracting major industries because they're going to look at the education workforce. And that's short-sighted. Of course, college is not for everybody. And we should have opportunities available. But we shouldn't do that at the expense of college educations. We should be encouraging those. One thing I always agree with Mike Beebe. Mike Beebe kept saying, we got to get more college graduates. We got to get more college graduates. He was right. And right now, we're not hearing that. The big statistic that I think is telling is that Arkansas ranks 44th in the country in the attractiveness and the infusion and the movement of young people to the state. Our growth is people like you and me.
Yeah.
Our growth needs to be 18 to 35. We need more young people, young minds, young entrepreneurs in this state. When you're 44th, that's bad. That's real bad for the future. And so the way that happens, I think, is college ed. That people, they're going to go to places. I give credit on quality of life. I fought it hard when I was at the Clinton School and working on downtown Little Rock possibilities, working. Thank goodness for Buddy Valines on bridges. Thank goodness for people on trails. But we have got to educate our workforce. Not me, and this people say, well, college is not for everybody. Well, we need more people in college.
Absolutely. And what you have to realize is you look at our institutions around Arkansas, especially our smaller institutions. Go to a UAM, go to a UAPB, go to a Henderson State. You look at those and you see a very high percentage of their students are first-generation college students, as you know. That's how you break cycles of poverty, is getting that first generation to get a college degree.
And you're exactly right. I mean, that
and that's why those schools, and they're the ones taking the cuts right now.
And that's
UA's getting more money, but Henderson, UAM, UAPB, all those schools are being cut by this current legislature and this current governor.
And you're right. University of Arkansas is fortunate because Dave Gerhardt had the idea a long time ago to go after Texas and go after other states. And they could do it because a lot of kids couldn't get into Texas schools and people wanted to play SEC
They
football.
like SEC schools.
And they wanted to do it. So that was a drawing card. But let's don't forget the aviation program at Henderson. Let's don't forget the forestry program at UAM. Let's don't forget these things that attract qualified, talented, bright people who likely will stay in Arkansas.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where we're shortchanging higher ed.
Oh, I think we missed the boat entirely. One of the things I did write in a recent column again, and I'm always careful about how I try to be careful how I say this. Let me make the point. Some of the smartest people I know do not have a college degree. I mean, that's no guarantee for anybody. But the fact that an increasing number of our 135 legislators have not been to college, that fact makes this argument tougher to sell. That's the point I'm making. Not that these people are stupid, but that they don't have the benefits of higher education in their own family, so they don't really understand how it'll benefit Arkansas. So for those who promote higher education, and you worked in higher education for many years, I spent 5 years representing all the private colleges and universities at the state capitol. That sale is harder, Skip, just because people don't have this in their own background and they don't really understand the importance of it. And somehow we've got to do a better job of selling the value of higher education funding to our 135 legislators.
Well, you're right. And unfortunately, higher education has become completely politicized. It has, you hear things like the protests at Columbia and all the
that's not Arkansas, though. People take these national examples.
I know.
I'll take you to the Southern Arkansas University campus in Magnolia, and you'll see something entirely different.
Yeah, and last Sunday, Second Presbyterian Church in Little Rock, the membership of that church brought a whole lot of food items for the Lyon College food pantry. And in that way, in a small way, they were supporting higher education because 40 to 50 kids a week use that food pantry. What we need is that kind of support at all levels for funding. And other thing I would say, Rex, and you understand this, you get this. People don't realize just what economic engines colleges and universities are, particularly
absolutely.
Take away Rich Mountain College, take away the community college in Forest City, take away the college in Mississippi County in Blytheville. You are really having a devastating impact on the community, not just in terms of education, but in terms of quality of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've heard me give this example before, Skip, but let's go to the south half of our state where most cities are bleeding population. We've seen Camden bleed population. We've seen El Dorado bleed population. They haven't gained a lot, but we've seen Magnolia hold steady. We've seen Arkadelphia hold steady. We've seen Monticello hold steady. What do they have in common? They have 4-year institutions of higher learning there.
You bet. And communities that have 4-year institutions are the ones that can survive the bad times and can thrive during the good times.
Absolutely. Skip, thank you. We're over time, but I appreciate you. We'll have you back. Thank you for joining us for another edition of the Southern Fried Podcast.